Hello.
Hi, Rabbi.
I can hear you, but I can't see you.
Oh, hi. Let me see if I can figure out how to do that. I didn't think you wanted to see me.
Oh, now I can see you. Well, it helps.
I have my fire going.
Enjoy.
Hey, yeah. Here's the dog. Right, Brandy, say hello. She's wet. Brandy, say hi to the rabbi. Yep.
Hi, how are you?
Brandy, not cooperating.
Well, dogs can be that way.
Here, well, let's see. There she is. Brandy. Hey. Brandy. So I got you on one screen. Oops. And oops, who else is on?
Nobody else at the moment, but it's a little early, so we'll wait. Stan informed me that he's not able to do it. And, I don't know. I mean, the other people are not necessarily as computer proficient, but we'll see.
I don't know. All I did was follow the link and push a button, push where it said whatever.
I know it's not. I'm not saying it's all that complicated, but hold on a second. I'm gonna. Never mind. We'll wait another minute or two, and if nobody else shows up, I mean, we'll still do it because maybe people will watch it, afterwards.
Yep. While we're waiting,
Yeah. Now this is being recorded and it's going to go on YouTube. So if there's anything sensitive, don't ask or mention.
Right. So I did start filling in the form for previous videos.
Okay, great.
So I have right now one link to the YouTube video and 2 links to the backup material. So if you can, I have to find the old stuff from before and I'll add that.
Oh, great. Really appreciate it.
Oh, it's, as long as I have the data, it's not too hard to cut and paste. Let's see. Put that on a, oops, there we go. Drop that down. Resize that. Sounds good?
Okay. Right. So the context is that Jacob has become very, very wealthy working for Lavan. And Lavan is now upset. And Lavan's sons are now upset. And Jacob is afraid that they're going to do something to him because they are upset. All right, so that's the context. Right, so 31:17. Vayakom Yaakov v'yisa et banav ve'et nashav al hagmalim. Jacob rose and he lifted his sons and his wives on the camels. Et banav ve'et neshav, his sons and his wives. So, I mean, there might not be anything to notice there, but there might be. Right?
Mm-hmm.
So, here comes Marcia. Hi, Marcia. I see her.
Yep.
I don't know if she's way. Okay, great. Hi. We just got started. Okay, so his sons and his wives. hikdim zecharim lenekevot va'asu va'esav hikdim nekavot l'zecharim shene'amar v'yikach Esav et nashav ve'et banav. So Jacob put the males before the females, but Esau put the females before the males, as it is said further on, and Esau took his wives and his sons, right? Jacob took his sons and his wives. Esau took his wives and his sons. Okay, now, all right, fine. But so what? I mean, what's the super commentary to Rashi here?
Well, with me, I'm being a feminist and all. I think you should put your spouse first, but he's putting his future generations ahead.
Right. Right, he's putting his future generations ahead. Exactly, right? In other words, that Jacob values the future more than the present, that Jacob values his progeny more than, I think what Rashi is implying is, the sexual enjoyment that he's going to get from his wives. Right? Now it's interesting because you mentioned being a feminist, right? And you said, well, as a feminist, you think that he should put his wives before his children. One could equally argue, I don't know, right, there was this ideal of male chivalry, and now in contemporary society, that idea is questioned, right? So, most of us would say that, if you were, without any context at all, right, and maybe change the names, right, but give people these two sentences and ask who's acting more properly, right? I suspect most people would say the one who put his wives before his sons rather than the other way around, right? But I think for Rashi, the issue is what's the priority, right?
Well,
Yeah,
well,
go ahead.
I mean, obviously, if you have a sick kid, you prioritize your, whoever needs it. I mean, it's like favoritism of children. But I don't know. I think it says something about, who you care for. I mean, take Golda Meir. She was a mother to a whole nation, and yet her own children sort of lost out. So there's,
Right.
something.
Well, not just Golda Meir. I mean, for that matter, Moshe. Right? I mean, we generally are operating in a model where sons succeed their parents. Right? Isaac succeeds Abraham. Jacob succeeds Isaac. Joseph succeeds Jacob. Right? Solomon succeeds David, etc. Right? But what's the glaring exception? Is Moses. Right? I mean, what do we know about Gershom? He was Moses' son. What else do we know? Moses neglected to circumcise him. Right? And God got mad during the journey, and Zipporah circumcised him and chewed Moses out, right? So you don't even have to, I mean, sure. I mean, I actually, it's interesting. You mentioned Golda Meir and her sons. I know nothing about them. Nothing. I didn't even know if she had children or not.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
No, all I was going to say was she did have kids.
Okay.
But we know nothing.
But Moses also, right? He was he was the leader of the people, but he wasn't apparently much of a dad. Okay, so verse 19, Lavan halach ligzoz et sono v'tignov Rachel et hatrafim asher aviha. Lavan had gone to shear his sheep, and Rachel stole her father's. Here, the text that we have in front of us says terafim. It doesn't translate it. The JPS. Now, I don't have the Eitz Chaim in front of me, but I have the JPS Hebrew English, which is the same translation. Trafim are household idols. Okay? Rachel stole her father's household idols. Very puzzling incident. The Torah itself gives no explanation as to why she did that. Right? None whatsoever. So, let's look at Rashi. To shear his sheep, that he had given into the hands of his son a journey of 3 days between him and Jacob, right? Because Lavan at this point doesn't know, right? Lavan at this point doesn't know that Jacob has gone, right? He doesn't know that. So obviously he's not going to shear the sheep that he's entrusted to Jacob. Right, he's going to shear the sheep that he's entrusted to his sons, not to his son-in-law, right? And that puts 3 days between them, right? That's a 3-day journey. Not so relevant for this verse, but as we'll see, it's going to become relevant soon. Meanwhile, Rachel stole her father's household idols. Why? Rashi says, "Lahafrish et aviha mi avodah zara nitkavna." She intended to separate her father from idolatry. Right? She stole the household idols. Why? So he couldn't worship them. Right? I mean, I don't know if that's the case. Because this is Rashi, it's not the Torah. The Torah tells us precisely nothing about why she did that. What do you think? All right, hold on. Marcia, wait a second. I got to unmute you. I think. Hold on. Let me. Okay, I unmuted you.
Okay, I see that. I wonder if I don't necessarily agree with Rashi. I think she may have taken them because she wanted them. She wasn't sure. I mean, it's totally nebulous. It could be one or the other.
For sure.
But it seems she may have wanted something from her home to take with her, and what better than the family idols, without thinking about what the effect on the family.
Right. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, you sometimes, I mean, not that these are idols, okay, but I have dealt with situations where people are converting or have converted, right? And now they inherit something from their family. And it is something of Christian religious significance, right? May they keep it. I personally tend to be pretty lenient about that, because I think that there are things that you can appreciate for their artistic value or their sentimental value, and not necessarily for their religious purpose. Right? Now, having said that, if it was a crucifix or something like that, I don't know. I would probably say, well, you could keep it, but don't display it.
Right. There are different degrees of things. There are different degrees of things.
Right.
Yeah.
Or she
go ahead.
Or she could just have, she thinks she's going to have married her husband 7 years earlier, right?
Right.
And she could be getting back at him like, this is important to Dad, and here's my opportunity.
That's another thought.
Sure. Absolutely. But Rashi, of course, is going to want to put, the best face on it, right?
Of
Because
course, of course.
Rachel is Rachel Imenu, right? Our matriarch Rachel. And, certainly to imply that she actually, because you haven't raised the possibility, but I will.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe she believed in their efficacy.
Could be.
Right? And so that's why she took him. I mean, we don't know. I mean, the Torah itself is silent on her reasoning, but obviously, Rashi would not want us to think that.
Of course.
All right,
Understand. Yeah.
let's go on. On the third day, Lavan was informed that Jacob had fled. Vayom hashlishi, on the third day, Sharei derech shloshet yamim haya beinehem, there was a 3-day journey between them, right? Which we learned up above, right? When he went to shear his sheep. Okay, so now Lavan has found out that Jacob has fled, and he's not happy. All right, I was going to use a different word, but
Okay.
I'm going to post this on the internet, so I'll be.
So you got to be, what's your language?
Vayikach et echav imo v'yirdof acharav derech shivat yamin vayedbek oto bahar hagilad. He took his kinsmen, literally his sons, with him, and he chased him 7 days' journey, and he caught him at Mount Gilad. Okay? Echav Krovav, his brothers, literally his kinsmen. Okay, that's not what I want to look at. 7 days' journey. All right, this is interesting. All those 3 days, the reporter went to tell Lavan Jacob went on his way. Right? We find that Jacob was 6 days distant from Lavan, and on the 7th day, Lavan overtook him. Right? Now, in other words, right, so they're at the same place, right? Mm-hmm. Jacob travels 3 days, right? Meanwhile, Lavan is traveling 3 days in the other direction, right? And the messenger arrives and tells him that Jacob has fled, right? So, right? So if we start at point A, right, and one person is traveling east for 3 days and one person is traveling west for 3 days, each of them is a 3 days journey from point A, but they're 6 days journey from each other, right?
Right.
So on the 7th day, Lavan overtook him. We find that the entire distance that Jacob had traversed in 7 days, Lavan traversed in 1 day. Because it says, right, Vayidov acharav derech shivat yamim. He chased him a 7 days journey. V'lo ne'amar v'yidov acharav shivat yamim. It doesn't say he chased him for 7 days. Right, you get it?
I'm trying.
All right. In other words, a day's journey is also a measure of distance.
Yes.
Right? Like a light year. Right? Which is confusing to some people because they think a light year is a measure of time. A light year is not a measure of time, it's a measure of distance.
Right? Yeah.
Right? The distance that light can travel in a year. So a day's journey is, according to Rashi, it's a measure of distance. Okay, so let's say 20 miles, right? 20 miles is about what you can travel in a day on foot in a caravan with animals, right?
Yeah.
Let's say, right? So they're now 100, right? So 120 miles apart, let's say, right? Okay. But Lavan traveled 7 days journey or 140 miles, right? It doesn't say he traveled for 7 days. He traveled 7 days journey. and he caught up to him on the seventh day.
Okay.
Right, which is the seventh day, according to Rashi, not the seventh day of his travel, but the seventh day since Jacob started his journey. Right? I think I'm getting that right. I mean, math,
yeah,
math
that
was
makes
never
sense.
exactly my strong point. So Lavan is able to go, what normally what we travel in 6 or 7 days in one day. Why?
He was motivated to get him.
Right. He was motivated, right?
Motivated, and plus he wasn't traveling with animals and children and everything, so he could go faster.
Right. He could go
No.
faster, but also because he's motivated, right?
Right.
I mean,
He wants them.
right? I mean, I'll give you similar examples. The verbiage is not exactly the same, okay? But in the Akedah,
Yeah.
right, it says Abraham arose early in the morning and saddled his ass, right? Now, Rashi says, Abraham's a wealthy guy, right? Why does it say he saddled his ass? Why doesn't it say he instructed his servant to saddle the ass, right?
Yeah.
It'd be like, I don't know, like the president going to get his own car. Who does that, right? Nobody, right?
Right, yeah.
That. And it's not just any particular president. It's any president, right? Lest I be accused of partisanship. I mean, even like it was a big deal when Obama was allowed to drive.
I know. No,
right?
it's a terrible thing. Dangerous.
Right. So Rashi says, well, why did Abraham saddle his ass himself? Ahava mikalkelet et hashura. Love. Let's say love makes us do things that we wouldn't normally do. All right. Okay. It's not an exact translation, but it's close enough. Right. Similarly, and maybe more relevant, when Pharaoh was informed that the Israelites had fled, he hitched up his chariot and pursued them. Right? Rashi has a similar question. You mean Pharaoh himself personally hitched up his chariot? He didn't, just order the hitching up of his chariot? And Rashi says, no, he did it himself, because just as in the case of Abraham and the Akedah, right? Ahava milkalkelet et hashura. So here, Sina milkalkelet et hashura, right? Hate can also cause us to do things that we would not otherwise do, right? And so here I think that's a relevant analogy to Lavan, right? He's so mad that he's able to, cover 120 miles in one day. Right? It's
amazing what we can do when we're angry.
It's amazing what we can do when we're angry.
Right.
or so I've heard. Right. All right. And God came to Lavan the Aramean in a dream of the night and said to him, beware lest you speak with Jacob either good or evil. Okay. Hishamer lecha pen tidaber im Yaakov mitov ad ra, which I assume is actually just sort of an idiomatic expression, right? Just like, we say sometimes for better or for worse. Right? But Rashi says, no, it's literal. All the good of the wicked is considered evil to the righteous. Okay? Which I actually don't know what that means.
No. Well, it's hard. I mean, nothing the wicked, nothing that the wicked does can be considered good or is considered, to the righteous. Confusing.
Right. I don't know. I don't know what it means. Gail, any thoughts?
No, I was just reading the commentary for the line in the.
All right. So, well,
But it doesn't say much.
all right. I don't have it in front of me because I didn't anticipate snow. So what does it say?
It says verse 24.
Yeah.
Once he has Jacob in sight, maybe in the wrong place. Laban encamps for the night without making contact. He then experiences the dream.
Right.
That's it.
Okay. So we don't know what this means.
No.
Except for the fact that later in the chapter, there is a comment. Maybe it's just that they're also going to talk about the agreement they make about, when they're separated, doing, not going to do anything bad.
Right.
I mean, so maybe it's just foreshadowing what's coming later in the chapter.
A few verses later.
Right. Possibly. I don't know. I confess that I don't really know what this means. Unless, I mean, the only possible thing that I could say is that, Lavan certainly in the rabbinic imagination is just a bad guy. Right? So then you might ask yourself if that's, your frame of reference. Well, beware lest you speak good or evil. How can he speak good? Right? How can he speak good? Right? And so his good is evil for somebody else. I'm not sure, but I think that's at least the context. Right? So now he has caught up with Jacob, verse 27. Lama nichbeta livroach. Why did you flee in secret? Why did you hide your fleeing? Literally. Vatignovoti, you stole me. You stole me. That's what it, right? Ganav, right? We know that word. Ganav, right? Lo tignov, right? A ganif in Yiddish, right? Tignovoti, you stole, right? Literally, it means you stole me, not you stole from me, right? Now, here it says, right, why have you fled secretly and concealed from me and not told me? I'm going to look at the other translation.
27.
Why did you flee in secrecy and mislead me and not tell me? Okay, so the Hebrew is tignov, right? But one translation says concealed, one translation says mislead. Okay, that's the word that Rashi is going to comment on. Okay, Vatignov ot. Right, and he's going to say, look, if I had known that you were going to go, I would have sent you away with joy and songs and drum and harp. Right, yeah, easy for you to say, right? Easy for you to say. There's no way for me to prove that is not the case. But at any rate, that's not what Rashi's commenting. Rashi is focusing on Vatignov ot, right? Concealed from me, literally, you stole me, right? Meaning you can now. Again, this is the translation of the Rashi is not an exact translation. Okay, look at the Hebrew of the Rashi. Ganavta et da'ati. Okay, you stole my mind.
Yeah.
All right. Now, you may or may not know that there's a halachic concept called Gnevat da'at, okay, which literally means stealing the mind, but it's like willful deception, right? Willful deception it's a type of fraud, right? It's a type of fraud that, you come to me and you say, Rabbi, I'm thinking of buying a new talit. Where should I buy it from? Right? And I tell you, oh, go to such and such a store, okay? Because they have the best talitot at the best prices, right? But the real reason that I've told you to go to that store is because I'm going to call them up and say, this Gail Lieberman who's going to show up at your store next week, I sent her to you. I expect my customary 20% kickback, right? That's gnevat da'at, right? That's literally stealing of the mind, right? I mean, even something that people commonly do, okay, which they do more and more, right? Like if you go, all right, you're in the market for a new computer, right? You're in the market for a new computer, so you go into Best Buy, right? And you ask the salesperson all kinds of questions, right? And you take up the salesperson's time, and now you know exactly what computer to buy, right? And you go online and you buy it for $10 cheaper, right? After having spent an hour with the salesperson, right? That's gnevat da'at, okay? That you're not allowed to do that. Okay, you're not allowed to do that. Now, it doesn't mean that if it's clear to you from the start that you have no intention of buying, then it's gnevat da'at, right? If there's a possibility that you really would buy, if you decide, well, yeah, sure, Amazon is $10 cheaper, but, if I buy here, there's someone I can call and da-da-da-da-da, then it's not necessarily forbidden, right? But if you know for a fact, right, you sort of, you've got the 3 or 4 computers that you're trying to narrow it down already loaded into your browser, right? You're just going to click on the correct one. That's gnevat da'at, right? You can't do that, right? Literally stealing the mind. It's an interesting concept, right? So, all right, any comments or questions on that? All right, let's go on. So now Lavan is mad, right? He's mad because Jacob and family snuck away, right? Omitting the drums and the dances and the flutes, right? And the ice cream cake or whatever there might have been, right? And hold on, I'm going to unmute you because Margaret, it looked like you were saying something, but somehow you.
Oh, I just said he never intended to things that he never intended to do. The
Right.
drums and the cymbals.
Right. I assume that too. Which, by the way, relevant in this context. Another form of gnevat da'at is, because this is actually almost what we're kind of assuming Lavan did.
Mm-hmm.
I'm throwing a party, right? I am throwing a party, and I know for a fact that on the date of my party, Gail Lieberman and Bill Hansen are going to be on a cruise, right? I know that for a fact.
So you invite me, but we can't come.
Right. So I invite you, but you can come, right? And I have gained your goodwill at precisely zero cost, right? that is not permitted. That is another form of Gnevat Da'at. Right now, if I say to myself, well, Gail and Bill, they love me so much, and my parties are so awesome that maybe they'll cancel their cruise and come to my party instead, but how likely is that? Right? How likely is that, right? But that is a form of Gnevat Da'at, right? If I invite you to a party knowing that you cannot come, right, solely for the purpose of gaining your goodwill, that's Gnevat Da'at, right? And so what? Marcia, go ahead. Did you say something?
No.
Oh, okay.
No.
Okay, so that's kind of what Lavan did, right? Oh, if I had only known that you were going to leave, I would have thrown you this tremendous farewell party, right? Well, go prove that he wouldn't. You can't, right? So Lavan is mad because they've fled and not given him the opportunity to throw this wonderful farewell party, right? But he's also mad because you stole my stuff. All right. Very well. You had to leave because you were longing for your father's house, right? This is Lavan talking to Jacob, right? You had to leave because you were longing for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods, right? And here, by the way, the word is not Teraphim, it is Elohim, right? It is actually gods. Okay, so we know that the Teraphim are household god. Why did you steal my god? Jacob answered Lavan, saying, I was afraid because I thought you would take your daughters from me by force. But anyone with whom you find your God shall not remain alive. In the presence of our kinsmen, point out what I have of yours and take it. Jacob, of course, did not know that Rachel had stolen them. Okay, so what does Rashi tell us? Rashi tells us that Umiota klala meta Rachel b'derech. From that curse, Rachel died on the way. Right? Right? We know that, right, Rachel, right, of all the patriarchs and matriarchs, Rachel is the only one not buried in the cave of Machpelah in Hebron. She's buried in the tomb of Rachel outside of Bethlehem because she died pregnant while traveling, right? And she died while giving birth to Benjamin, and she was buried where she died. Rashi says she was buried where she died because of what Jacob said, right? In other words, but Jacob, I mean, it's interesting because Jacob really, it seems, didn't know, right? Jacob didn't know that Rachel had the household gods, and Jacob, look, nobody in my retinue has them. If you find them, that person will die. And Rachel had him, and she died. Now, obviously not like right then and there, not immediately, but, prematurely, and not in a good old age like everybody else. Does this remind you of any other story? Marcia, I keep trying to unmute you unsuccessfully. So I don't know. Gail, does it remind you of anything?
No, all I was coming up with was Rachel weeping, but from that's during Rosh Hashanah, right?
Yeah. What about Jephthah's daughter? Right?
Who's?
Jephthah, Yiftach. Yiftach. I mean, we actually, it's one of the Haftarot. You might have even translated it. Yiftach was this fighting man, right? And the Israelites come to him. He's an illegitimate son, right? And I think he's the son of a prostitute. And the Israelites.
Oh, that's the one that's dead that comes back to life. No, am I the wrong one?
No, he says, if God delivers the Philistines into my hand, then when I come home victorious, the first thing that runs out of my house to greet me, I'm going to sacrifice to God.
Yeah, I remember that one.
Right,
yes.
and that's his daughter. Right, so to me, this reminds me of that. Because it's a pledge or a promise or an oath that's sworn hastily and in anger and without full knowledge, right? So let's go on.
Correct. Yes.
I heard you, Marcia. Very good. All right.
Okay.
All right. So going to skip ahead a bit, right? Because now Jacob is laying out all of his grievances, right? Lavan is mad, and now Jacob is laying out his side of the story, right? 20 years that I have spent in your house. I served you 14 years for your 2 daughters and 6 years for your animals, and you changed my wages 10 times. Right now, this is a reference to, and I'm not gonna go back into it, right? But Jacob is like a full charge shepherd, right? He's completely in charge of the flocks, and the deal that he has is, if they're born, the ones that are born speckled are mine, the ones that are born striped are yours, right? Or vice versa, right? And then God would either instruct him what to do or, or just miraculously, right? But God is intervening to make sure that he's getting the better deal no matter what. But Lavan is changing his wages all the time. Right? So he's saying, look, you're not, you haven't treated me fairly, right? You're complaining, but you got 20 years of work out of me, at less than minimum wage, right? So Lavan answered, the daughters are my daughters, the sons are my sons, the animals are my animals, all that you see is mine. What would I do to these daughters of mine today or to their children whom they have borne? Right now, what would I do there? How could I entertain the thought of harming them? Right now, this goes back to several verses earlier, right? Where Jacob is saying, I fled because I was afraid that you would harm me, right? Or that you would harm my children or my wives, right? And now Lavan is saying, and absolutely, I don't know. I don't know whether he's being sincere or not, right? I mean, I think I could read it either way. I think you could legitimately read it either way. But Lavan, at this point, is also either offended or feigning offense, right? Saying, what, you thought that, you really entertain the possibility that I would harm my own daughters, that I would harm my grandchildren. Right now, I'm offended. You think so poorly of me. Right? I don't know. I mean, when I say I don't know. I don't know whether Lavan is feigning offense or whether he's really offended. What do you think?
I think he's the kind of person whose heads I win, tails you lose.
Okay.
So I think he's feigning personally. I don't think he'd harm them necessarily, but, obviously he's never going to give I think Jacob's right in going because he's got all this past experience. And to quote Dr. Phil, the best predictor for future behavior is past behavior.
Mhm. Okay. Marcia, any thoughts?
She's muted.
I just unmuted her. No. You have to unmute yourself, maybe? I don't know. This is weird. I keep trying to unmute you with no success. Obviously, God doesn't want you to say anything.
Oops.
Hello? Nope.
Maybe Marcia, touch the bottom, see if you can unmute yourself.
Right. It should be the bottom left of your screen. There's an icon of a microphone. And if there's a line through it, hit that and you'll be able to speak.
Yeah, okay.
I
just did. Can you hear me now?
can.
Okay, this has been, what?
Yes, I can hear you.
You can hear me?
Yes.
Okay. Well, I think Levon is being deceptive. I mean, nothing he says is really honest. Everything.
Oops.
Lost. Hello? Not hearing you. Not hearing you.
Okay.
Oh no, there
I've
you
been
are.
having problems with my system.
Right.
It keeps shutting down.
All right.
Okay. Yeah. Oh, did you hear what basically I think you can't believe anything Levon says. I don't think he would hurt his grandchildren, but who knows?
Right. But it's not, I mean, he probably wouldn't, but it's not unreasonable to think he might. Right?
Right.
All right.
And
Okay.
he's been cheating Jacob all along, so
Right.
how can you trust
All right.
such a man?
Okay. Right. I mean, like you say, past evidence, right, is the best past performance is the best predictor of future results. Right. So 44. This is Levon
Right.
still talking. Right.
Right.
Va'ata lecha nechrata vrit ani va'ata v'hayeh la'ed beini uvencha. So literally, now let us go and cut a covenant, cut a treaty. But that's the idiom, lichrot brit. Okay, it's not literally cut, but that's the word they use. Let us cut a treaty. But we say that in English too, right? Let's cut a deal, right? I and you, and let it be, or let him be, a witness between me and you. And what's the he? God. Okay. I don't know. I mean, it's difficult. Whether Levon really means God or not, I don't know. Again, Rashi could be putting words in his mouth, or it could also be that that's really what he said. But again, he didn't mean it, right? Because, it's hard for me to imagine him saying, well, let God be a witness, when, 20 verses earlier, he's really mad because his idols have been stolen.
Right.
So who knows? All right. So Jacob said to his kinsman, La'achav, right? Literally to his brothers, gather stones, and they took stones and made a pile, and they ate there by the pile. All right.
Right.
So Rashi says that the Torah calls Jacob's sons his brothers because they were more like brothers to him, right? Because they were his brothers in arms, right? And again, that metaphor of brothers, right? We have that phrase "brothers in arms," right? We have the phrase "band of brothers," right? Which I learned came originally from Shakespeare. What was it, Henry V, the St. Crispin's Day speech, right? That was apparently the first usage of the phrase "band of brothers." What a great speech! I saw it first in the Kenneth Branagh version. Right, very inspiring, right? So it's his sons, but they're like brothers because they're his brothers in arms. All right. So they put up this pile of stones, right? And it's a witness. Okay, now remember, I mean, Jacob is into putting piles of stones, right? Because on the way, right, 20 years ago, but at the beginning of this parsha, right? VaYetze Yaakov mi Beersheva vayelech Harana, right? He left Beersheva heading to Haran, right? And he not there. He wrestles with the angel, right? So that's later. And he also puts up a pile of stones, right? Now, here in the next verse, Vayikra lo Lavan Yegar Sahaduta V'Yaakov Kara lo Gal Ed. Okay, pile of witness. Right? What is this Yegar Sahaduta? It's Aramaic for a pile of witness or a heap of witness. Okay, so now I want to tell you something. If you want to appear very erudite, right, memorize those two words, Yegar Sahaduta. Okay, and having memorized those two words, you can go in shul Saturday morning, and remember, I'll be in the other room teaching the kiddos, and you can say, I, Gail Lieberman, I, Marcia Litwack, have memorized all of the Aramaic in the Torah.
Or I'm going to have read it.
Right? But because that is all the Aramaic in the Torah. There's plenty of Aramaic in later books, right? I mean, there's Aramaic there's a lot of Aramaic in Daniel, right? There's a little Aramaic in Esther, but all of the Aramaic in the Torah and the Chumash is these two words in this verse, Yegar Sahaduta, pile of witness, right? Because why? Because Lavan, he's right, Lavan ha'arami.
I'm Aramaean.
Right, he's an Aramaean, so he speaks Aramaic. But Jacob is a Hebrew, so he's now obviously, I mean, they've been talking to each other, so one has to presume that Jacob is bilingual, right? You have to presume he's bilingual, but when it comes to naming places, everybody wants to name them in their own way. Now, okay, so Gail, question: were you at the board meeting Monday night?
Yes.
Okay, when I spoke about the angels, right? The Eretz Yisrael angels and the Chutz La'aretz angels, right? So, right, and that's at the beginning of this parsha, right? And actually, I think it's in my 2-minute Torah this week as well. So, Marcia,
and you've also discussed it in the past.
Right, I have discussed it in the past, right? This is the problem when you've been at a place for a few years. You start repeating yourself. And unfortunately, I have some kind of to what I say. And so you spoke about that once before. But that's okay. Right? But here, Rashi is closing a circle, or the Torah is closing a circle. Right? Jacob went on his way, V'Yaakov halach ledarko, V'ifka'ubo malachei Elohim, and angels of God met him or encountered him. Okay, angels of God met him. Who? Which angels? Malachim shel Eretz Yisrael ba'u likrato, lilavoto la'aretz. Right, angels of the land of Israel came out to greet him and escort him into the land. Right, because remember, right, 20 years ago he's leaving Israel to go to either Syria or Turkey. We're not exactly sure, right? Also, maybe because the borders keep changing, right? But somewhere in Syria or Turkey, maybe Kurdistan, right? We'll call it Kurdistan and make everybody angry, except the Kurds. Right? So you have the angels ascending and descending, right? The angels ascending are the Eretz Yisrael angels going off duty, right? The Chutz la'aretz, I'm teach you that term if you don't know it. Chutz la'aretz means outside the land, right? Ha'aretz doesn't mean the land, it means the land of Israel, right? So for Jews and certainly for Israelis, right, the world is a binary. It's either ba'aretz or chutz la'aretz, right?
Yeah, well, mechutz, all the way through like Exodus, you have mechutz machaneh, outside the camp.
Mechutz la'machaneh, exactly, right. Okay, so chutz la'aretz, right? So you have Eretz Yisrael, right? Malachei Eretz Yisrael, and right, Malachim shel Eretz Yisrael, and Malachim shel Chutz la'aretz, right? The world is divided into two angelic commands, right? We don't have the northern, the central, and the southern command. We have the Eretz Yisrael command and the Chutz la'aretz command, right? But in this case, I guess the Malachim shel Eretz Yisrael have received special permission from God to go a little bit beyond the borders and escort him in. Right? Because it says, Lilavoto la'aretz, escort him to the land, right? Not in the land. Right? Jacob said when he saw them, this is the camp of God. V'yikra shem hamakom hahu machanayim. Right? He called the name of the place two camps. Right? Why two camps? Shtei machanot. Right? Two camps of angels. Shel chutza la'aretz shaba'u imo adkan, v'shel Eretz Yisrael shaba'u likrato. Right? There's two camps of angels. The chutz la'aretz angels who have accompanied him so far, and now the Eretz Yisrael angels who are taking over. Right, because God, he should not be, as I pointed out on Monday night, apparently, if when he was at that place 20 years ago, right, the angels went up and then came down, so he was left unprotected for a little while. But here, no. I mean, and maybe that's it. Maybe the angels realized, this is a bad system. Right, this is a bad system, right? We don't send the cop going off duty for donuts until the new cops take over, right? So here the new cops have already taken over, right? And the old cops are going off duty, and that's why it's machanayim. There's two camps of angels, right? The Israel angels and the rest of the world angels, right? Thus closing a circle. And it really is actually a fitting conclusion. I mean, you don't have to, right? I mean, at the beginning of the Parsha, Jacob left Israel. 20 years later, he's coming back, right? So it's an appropriate place to end the Parsha. Miraculously, it's an appropriate place to also end the class. It's precisely on the clock. But if there's any, last comments or questions, we can do it. If not, I will thank you for joining me and say good night.
Shalom.
Okay,
Shalom.
thank you.
Thank you.
And
Laila
good
Tov.
night. Okay, Lila Tov.